Oh my goodness. The troubles of Instagram and Facebook and all of these other things that own all of our data and steal our souls little bit by bit. Okay, let's see. I think we're on. I think we're good. Is everybody else here? Oh, this is so charming. So charming. So complicated, I think. It's very complicated, this stuff. How is everyone today? How are you? How are you feeling? You excited for some experiments to make? I'm excited to experiment with you. Welcome. I'm here broadcasting live from Delray Beach, Florida. Got some wind, some sun, lots of sun. I feel for you, whomever are, not in a warm place right now. It's quite a feat to be cold and stuck inside, albeit without fresh air because you're afraid to open the window. So I would definitely advise you to open the window. Cheers. So hi everyone joining on Instagram and all of the other people and places wherever you are in the world. This has been scheduled in California time, so if you're out in the Far East, my apologies. We have drinking games whenever I'm lecturing, so that includes right now. So grab some water to get set up. The drinking games, what we do is every time I drink, you drink, yeah? That would be now, yeah? So get your water and settle in. We are here for an hour to talk about 3 big topics that, you have time to unpack right now, because my guess is normally your everyday life is a bit crazy. And yes, I know this whole COVID thing, it's so beautiful that we're not going to talk about any of that. I'll just start with saying whatever you've seen, it's about to get way worse this weekend, and specifically Monday and then Tuesday. There is definitely a timing element to this, as unpredictable as it might feel for all of you. The reality of it is that this has been forecasted years in advance by us in the astrology community. As esoteric as that sounds, anyone who's known me for a while knows that I'm really quite scientific and logical about it. And the reality of it is that what's happening right now in the sky, and you'll be able to see it if you wake up early in the morning before sunrise. If you look towards the east, if you're in the Western hemisphere, and vice versa, you'll see in the night sky the planets of, ready? Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, and currently Mars. All in one space. And these are some of the most potent planets that they are. And they have not aligned like this in 740 something years since the French Revolution time. So the reality of what we're going through right now is at the same time, and I'll go through all the elements of the planets, just a little side note before we start on the poop, sex, whatever, in case people are still logging on, is that it is massive amounts of shit hits the fan, which is Saturn. Yeah. With oomph or power, energy, sometimes war, which is Mars, right? At the same time as energy of Pluto, which is death and rebirth. It's the composting energy. It is the, something needs to be reborn. It's time for it to be restarted, aka the old system. And then finally, we have here with it as well, what did I mention? Saturn, Jupiter. Oh, Jupiter, of course. So Jupiter, which expands everything, and it really makes things expanded, emphasized, whatever it is. So that energy of shit hits the fan, of war, all of it coming together at once is super confronting, perhaps, for a lot of you. And specifically in your own astrological chart, I don't know if anyone knows anything about your own chart, but you will have more of a personal experience with it if your axis is somehow squaring those late signs of Capricorn on the tropical zodiac or Western astrology. So like shit's meant to be hitting the fan. I'm getting lots of text messages from my friends like, Andy, you called it all last year. You said that 2020 was going to be crazy, especially March. Yeah, well, I mean, that's not me calling it. It's like the planets doing this, that's producing this on Earth. And so again, this is the first time that we've had this kind of alignment since French Revolution time. And of course, I'm sure you know what happened in French Revolution time, revolution. And so all of this is convening in the sign of Capricorn, which is a lot about the system. It's global capitalism, it's corporate entities, it's patriarchy, it is the man at large. And originally, this is much more of a wise elder, older grandmother energy, but it has been usurped by the patrilineal forces. So anyway, so someone's asking on the Instagram, I'm Sagittarius, how will it be? So it's not about your sun. The sun is not at all of issue here. My recommendation for you is actually to go to astro.com and look up, enter in the details of your own personal chart. It's recommended that you do have your birth time for any kind of accurate astrology reading, which I'm happy to give you. I have lots of time on my hands these days, surprisingly enough. And you will be able to see then your entire chart. So it's where your Venus is, where your Mars is, where your Mercury is, et cetera, et cetera. So you have much more than your sun. You're much more than your horoscope as you knew it. Anyway, so that's a little intro to kill some time as people join. Welcome to anyone who's coming in. Introduction to me. Cool, I'm just a kid like everyone else, locked at home, like you right now. This is actually my first time teaching to an audience where I have no doctor with a long history in health and wellness. My specialty is the gastrointestinal system, as well as psychosomatics and evolution at large. I taught yoga teacher trainings and advanced yoga teacher trainings for many years. And then I left my career 2 years ago to start to work in AI and futurism. And I run something called the Institute for Aliveness, which is really training the doctors of the future. So shout out to all TIFA, Institute for Aliveness participants here. We have 20 students going through the program right now. It's an 18-month course from 15 different countries all around the world. And so it's a massive up level. And that is what this time is about. I won't just leave you with that a little astrology segment by saying, you know, the world's on fire. Back off. Like, no, we're going to see major financial crumblings, let's say, if you will, on the 31st of March, roughly around 11 a.m. GMT. And that's wonderful, because with the death of something new is born. And so notice the energies that this brings up in you. People around me are saying that they're depressed or they're sad, especially people at older ages. At TIFA, we started a grandparent project, which I invite you, please, please, please come be part of, whomever you are. Send me a direct message, send me a message. It's very easy to, if you search Andrea Page on Google, you'll find me. Send me a message if you want to be part of it. But what we're doing is we have 30 questions to spend 60 minutes with an elder. Because if you think about it right now, perhaps one of the most pressing issues are all of the old people at home alone, feeling super lonely, the most threatened by this disease, right, that's coming upon us. And so just to like get together, whether you volunteer your grandparent or whether you volunteer to interview someone else's grandparent, like please come and be a part of that. We're really excited about that at TIFA. So what I was saying is just that things are starting anew, and that starts with you. Because any change that we want to see outside, or any calmness, or any business as normal that we desire, right, that can only happen when you are fully, totally, completely present with yourself. And so what's required for that presence with yourself is for you to literally become a scientist in the living laboratory of your body, and for you to take the reins to start to act from a place of awareness. And this awareness is the same exact thing that we're after, if I can say, if we're after something in meditation, right? It's that state of like, oh, okay, I'm aware of who's watching. So let's just start right now, and it'll be good for me to cool down with a little bit of just sit here. And I know you're watching this and you have the freedom on your phone or whatever to swipe away and leave, right, from going inside, but just like try it out right now. This is all about experimentation, right? We'll get to talk about sex in a second. I brought a wig for that. So close your eyes. Allow your jaw to relax. Settle into wherever you are. Feel your seat, your bum into the seat. Allow your back to lean into wherever you're sitting. Make sure there's space between the back teeth. Maybe put your palms to face upward. Notice already if you think this is silly or stupid. Notice if you're breathing through your belly or not. And I invite you to allow the belly to expand on the inhale. And what you're doing physically right now is resetting your nervous system. You're doing really well. Keep going. Just notice sitting down more into the chair, leaning back, shoulders relaxed, elbows heavy. All you have to do is focus on the inhale, the breath coming out through the belly expands, and exhale, it falls in. Start to create a slight smile behind your eyes. Make sure there's space between your back teeth. And now let the breath expand from the belly all the way up through the ribs. The smile can come to the corners of the mouth. Think of the last funny thing, the last funny COVID meme you saw. And notice if you can get a continuous breath. This is very physical, anatomical, from the navel all the way up through the sternum, the chest, the heart area. And then relax through the jaw and the base of the neck where it meets the head. See if you can breathe one continuous breath all the way through there, or if it's stuck somewhere, notice if you're forcing it. Notice if your mind escaped or you swiped and went somewhere else. Or notice if you can be present with yourself right here, right now. Because if you want to be alive, right, during this crisis of death, this aliveness comes from this place, this seed from you. Slowly, whenever you're ready, allow your eyes to open, soft gaze in the space in front of you. Notice how different you feel. You've literally just had a physiological reboot, which is a very difficult thing to do on your own. So bless you for doing it, and congratulations. Drink up, people. So, yeah. Going into that space is what's required for any responsible scientist. And that's what I'm recruiting you to become today. A responsible scientist in the living laboratory of your body. So when we say experiments to make, what that means is that you are going to collect data over the next 1 week or 2 weeks, or who knows how long you're in quarantine, right? You are going to actually investigate your life like a scientist or a detective would. And you are going to get data from it that will help you understand more what's going on here, what's going on here, and what's going on here, right? And the answers to those questions are what will free us from the plight of being human today. And with all of this craziness going in the sky, I promise all of you are facing the plight of being human in one way or another, right? It's not an easy job being human. If I were there, I would high five you with social distance, right? High five, air high five. Good job for getting out of bed this morning, right? First step, check. So the next step then is how to perhaps be a better human, how to take care of this vehicle that you've been gifted for your spirit to drive throughout life. What it can do, where it can go, all of its features, right? All of these features of our being human. And with this, life will start to get a lot brighter, even if you're in a dark, cold cloud space. And so in this, because they are experiments, that means that you have the answers, not me. I'm not here to tell you anything you don't already know at some point or depth of your being. I am here to share with you information that you already know, but to encourage you to reprioritize it in a way where it's socially accepted, let's say, as well as socially distanced. And so our three main topics for today are indeed poop, sex, and food addiction. And these are things that I lecture all the time about all over the world to very differing communities. I do a lot of emotional intelligence lecturing and consulting for startups as well as people in the tech space. So those are very, very, very relevant now because Saturn, where it's moving, is into Aquarius. And if you don't know, things like the fact that 5G is currently being installed into schools all over the US at least. And yeah, these are times where we have to be awake. The time of being a sheep and just listening to what's being told will no longer work. And so by no means am I asking you to be a sheep with these things. Really, with anything, don't believe me. Verify me. Do your own work. I'm offering to you parameters for experimentation so that you can come back with a level of self-reflection and knowing. And I'll share something personal with you, which is feminine. So men, you can put on headphones for this one. But like when I was, I think 19, I was studying in Australia, and Danielle, a girl who lived in my dorm, she used to say, "Oh, I think my period's coming." And I was like, whoa, how do you know that? I have no idea when my period's coming. You know, it's on a calendar, it just comes. So that disembodiment, that level of disembodied awareness or lack of awareness is something that I set out immediately to go and course correct. And so this is my invitation to you today to find out when your period's coming. No, to literally be able to translate the messages of your body and your soul and what it wants, and be able to have a much clearer communication. Because how many of you out there listening or watching right now suffer from headaches, lethargy, bloating, farting, burping? How many of you suffer from acne or rashes, psoriasis, angry fits, right? Any kind of mental disorder, right? There is no disorder. There is only order that's been covered up through a shroud of stress and modern society. And so my real invitation to you more than anything is to unshroud yourself. And the most powerful practice that I've ever found in 15 years of searching on how to unshroud is fasting. And so at the initiation.co, you can read more about fasting in general. We are a nonprofit that runs online fasting programs for people to take their health back into their own hands at this next level. And so that is what we'll be talking about more in the third section with food addiction. Who amongst you has gone through all of your quarantine snacks already? Yeah, in one night. Who among you is rationing, right? This is me. I have like all the stuff that I'm waiting to eat, stored away in a secret spot, right? Rationing it out. Because we're in a time of scarcity. So we get to like confront all of that scarcity that happens within of like, oh, fuck, look at all these games my mind is playing, right? And so when you start to, let's say, keep tabs on the games, and that's really what we're doing when we collect the data from our own embodied experiments, then we can start to really liberate ourselves into not necessarily having more control. That's not our desired outcome, but in general, being more coherent, feeling better, having more peace in where we're moving and why we're moving. So, all right, you ready to start to talk about poop? Let's talk about poop, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Wait, those weren't the lyrics? So when we talk about poop, what we're talking about is defecation. And I have been through many years of educating on the fact that something you weren't taught in school, human beings are meant to be pooping once per meal per day. Yeah, I'll say that again. Once per meal per day. I know some of that might be a surprise to many of you. Humans are meant to be pooping. Something goes in, something comes out, just like babies, just like dogs. This is physics, guys. And so in that realization, we can say, wait a minute, woof, I don't do that. Raise your hand if you don't do that. Does this have any hand raising feature? We're not on Zoom. Right, comment if you don't do that. Or perhaps comment if you do, and we'll see how few comments there are. Because in my data collection from almost 100 countries all over the world over the past 15 years, right, I've found that, guess what? Most of the world is constipated. And your definition of constipated is probably different than mine. Yours probably involves something like that, pushing and hardness and difficulty like that. My definition of constipation is eating more times than you're pooping less than once per meal per day. So it's super, super, super important to start to be aware of that. And just me telling you this now will heighten your awareness. I get lots of messages from people on the toilet. It's fine, you can write me and let me know how it's going. But that quality of pooping more is of the utmost importance for clarity in your entire life. And when you think about it, like you have a river flowing through your body. Let's put some water in, yeah. And in that, if things are not flowing out, then they're being kept inside. And just like any other cesspool, when you have feces inside that are meant to come out and the stream is clogged, then we see where we can have problems. So Casey on YouTube says she doesn't poop once per meal per day. Thanks, girl. What a lover to be able to out yourself. Yes, that's the environment that we're creating here, because next we're talking about sex. So you're going to have to get really really open here, guys. No more time for taboo. You know, I'm tickling the taboo. That's what we're doing here. So, yeah, this is super normal, Casey. Most people only poop once per meal or once per day, right? Let alone once per meal per day. It's about 90% or more, as I said, that poops less than that. And what this means is that your body is constantly becoming more acidic. It's constantly providing an environment, making it ripe for disease to come. And of course, this moves into immunity as well. You want to become more immune, start pooping more. So on that way of how to poop more, this is a very important list that I give people. So get out your notepads and your pens or your phone or whatever it might be. 3 ways to poop more. Number 1, we're already doing. So cheers to that. Hydration. And if you think about it, it's super simple. This is nothing you don't know, right? You have a rubber tube and a rock inside. It's really difficult to get the rock down the rubber tube. All of a sudden you pour water in and it floods out. Well, there we have it. Hydration is of the utmost importance. The amount of water that the body uses and loses per day is 3 liters, which means that we need at least that to be replenished. So how many of you drink 3 liters at least of water a day on an empty stomach, not with food? Probably about the same time, or many of you that poop 3 times a day. And there's definitely a correlation there that the more hydrated you are, the more easy it is for your bowels to move, the easier it is. And the more hydrating food that you're having as well. So the more fruits and vegetables that you're eating, water containing fibers matter, right? And some of you might be like, well, my quarantine stock's just like macaroni and cheese and pasta, right? And that's not going to cut it if A, you want to be healthy, and B, you want your digestive system to move. So my recommendations on that for time during quarantine would be to get fruits and vegetables that last longer. So looking at hard fruits, and I mean, anything from an unripe banana. Unfortunately, throughout most of at least the Western world and most of the rest of the world, bananas are picked too early. And they're left to ripen. So that to an unripe avocado, to something like apples, of course, have duration. Think sweet potatoes, although you don't want to get too heavy on starch because it does affect the lungs. But things like this to be able to add more fiber to your diet. I'm not opposed to frozen fruit and vegetables, especially if it's wild, organic, and fresh picked before it was frozen. That's a really great option during quarantine. And so whatever you're eating, try to eat more plants and like forget about portion sizing because we also want big, big poops as well. All right. And so how to poop more. Number 1 was hydration, hydrating food as well as water. 3 liters of water a day is our responsibility to replenish. If you're having coffee or alcohol, which mind you, that's really silly during such a quarantine time, like you're asking for your immune system to be lowered. Anyway, if you are having those, they're massively dehydrating. And you guys can check out my podcast, which is the Vitality Podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, or search my name and you'll be able to find it. And then you will definitely be able to listen in more on how to poop more. So we'll go through this list. Number 1 was hydration. Number 2 is to squat. So there's a biomechanical position that your body was made to squat in. Yeah. So it's like this with your knees up towards your shoulders. And that's a position that will result in the fullest, most expansive, released poop, which will make you happy. I mean, if you've ever seen a dog poop, they poop and then they wag their tail. If you had a tail, I know you would wag it after you pooped. Yeah. But that level of elimination is what is going to not only make you super healthy, but also super happy. So experiment with this. Again, just knowing that you're supposed to be pooping more is going to help. Second, hydrating, squatting, being in the correct position. So what this might look like for you is if you pull over a rubbish bin or even if there's a stool that you can use to put your feet up on, go ask your roommate or your partner or your husband or your wife, hey, we need something by the toilet so that your feet can be up there. If end all be all, right, put the toilet seat up, jump up on the rim itself. So again, don't believe me, verify me, try it out, see how it goes. So after squatting, then the third way to poop more, which is super important, is to give yourself time, to make time. To go to the toilet when you don't even think you have to, right? And just see what happens, right? Let things come out. Get your mind off of things so you can take out your phone and look up that day's memes on COVID or whatever it might be. And drinking game for anyone just signing on. Make sure that you drink every time I drink. So when your mind gets off of things, your body knows exactly what to do. So as the mind leaves, the body releases. And this is beautiful. Again, don't believe me, verify me. Give yourself 10 minutes in a squat-like position with your mind off, and your body will probably do something if you're hydrated and you're in that spot. So pooping more is the number one experiment that you can do while in quarantine, because you're in a safe place. There's no complaining or mental incorrectness of, oh, I can't poop there, I can't poop at work, or I can't poop at his house, right? Pooping's become so taboo, and yet we're all human. And last time I checked, hopefully we all poop. So with that, huge opportunity to expand into a world of excitement with pooping. And I'll give you some homework as well. I always do. Talk to someone who is not on this live right now. You can send them this video if you want. But ask them how many times a day they poop, because I want you to join me in the mission to make pooping less taboo. It's so important. This is the number one thing causing disease in modern humanity, right? When we were humans, hundreds of thousands of years ago in the wild, it wasn't a big deal. We just squatted wherever we went. But because we are literally backed up today, this is resulting in a whole host, along with other lifestyle factors that have changed, but a whole host of non-communicable disease. And so heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, cancer, and obesity, all of these are not only preventable, but pausable and reversible through diet and lifestyle changes alone. And a huge part of that is pooping and hydration. So if you want to hear more about that stuff, go and check out the podcast. There's hours and hours and hours. Also the Facebook page, facebook.com/the Institute for Aliveness. 7 years of videos. We're just slowly moving them here to YouTube. But all these resources are here. So open them up on your browser right now so that you don't forget about it. And unless anyone has any interesting poop questions, we will move on to talking about sex. And then I'll make sure that we have time for food addiction. Should we talk about food addiction first, I wonder? Let's talk about food addiction first. So the human body can really thrive and survive for 40 to 50 days on water alone. That, as well, I'm sure, is news to you. Well, in talking about food addiction, for anyone just signing, welcome. We're moving from the poop conversation to the food addiction, and then we're going to get to sex at the end. When we talk about the ability of the human body to not need food, it far supersedes the ability of the mind, because your mind is what's hungry, right? Often your body isn't hungry, guys. It's thirsty. Drink some water. Drinking game for those of you joining. I drink, you drink. Water. So with that understood, we can see that because we are not growing our own food, right? Because we don't know how to forage in an urban or often even in a rural environment, we are left with a massive disconnection from the most important source of energy in our life. When I say energy in scare quotes, you can read Fast, the book on fasting, to understand more about the internal energy that comes when you start to fast. But nonetheless, we are so reliant on food. I know that's the panic, like the panic buying of everyone. It's food and toilet paper, all right? So food addiction and poop, we've got it covered here. And our over-reliance on food is an unfortunate mental imbalance that all modern humans, you're not alone in your addiction to food. All modern humans face it because we do not have an understanding of where the food source is coming from. Thus, it's a constant lack of security, especially in a time like this where you're not allowed outside. You're not allowed to go to the corner store, depending upon where you are in the world, right? Full lockdown in Italy, Spain, places like this where certain degrees of martial law have already been established, right? Coming to other parts of the world. And as I told you at the beginning, re-astrology, it's only going to get worse. And I say that with love, but also with arming you with this quality of experimentation and hopefully trust, massive amounts of connection and trust to the mythic story of humanity as the virus spreads throughout the earth, right? Killing off humans. Right? Mother Earth's like, Ma, I got a fever. You guys, like, you outgrew me. I just got to throw some of you off. Right? Shifting our perspective from this panic and fear to one where we're like, okay, something's happening here and it's meant to be happening. I'm not going to waste time or energy or headspace on fighting it or wishing it weren't happening. I'm going to go inside to that place that we found at the beginning of awareness, and I'm going to apply that awareness to every aspect of my life. This is mindfulness. This is the same thing that the Buddhist friends that you guys have been working on for years, right? This is the fundamental basis of how to thrive as a human today, is to enhance our self-reflection, our mindfulness, and our awareness. And these experiments that we're talking about, first with poop and now with food addiction, are ones that I want to challenge you to embrace. So on the level of food addiction, what else is there to say? I mean, you guys, if you went up until 5 o'clock one day without eating, you would probably feel bad for yourself, right? You would be worried, right? You might be psychosomatically saying, I'm going to pass out, right? You might be angry, hangry. That's a big one of the modern society. All of these stipulations that come from our addiction to and over-reliance on food. Now, don't get me wrong, disclaimer, I'm not saying we're not meant to eat. Breatharianism is not my path, nor would I teach in this life. Although there are people, Indian sages in India, who have not eaten in about 80 years, and many scientific experiments done on them. And when we are connected again to another source of energy, which probably no one who's on social media is, as much as I love modern day gurus, they wouldn't put up with this bullshit. Until we're connected that strong, we still need to eat to have calories in, energy out, right? Calories in, energy out. And this is how mostly we operate. However, the amount that we eat today is way more than any humans in our history have eaten. Even 50 years ago, 200 years ago, humans didn't nearly eat as much as we are today. Moreover, of course, eating processed foods that are with additives and preservatives and things our body simply doesn't recognize. So it's no surprise that we are where we are on a level of non-communicable disease in the current state of affairs. And so, of course, again, the diet advice is simple. Hydrate. That's number one on your dietary advice of intake. Number two is eat more fruits and vegetables. And whatever you think more is, way more. Right? Until what you're eating is mostly fruits and vegetables. This is going to make you poop. This is going to provide you a little more clarity in your life. And just those two things alone will help you get over the addiction. Because the more that you're shoving shit down your throat, and I'm not talking actual shit here, I'm talking, low quality things. And you know what they are as well as I do. Anything fried, right? Overly salty, oily, processed, dense animal foods, et cetera, anything that's not really fresh, even unripe fruit, I would consider shit. Sorry, unripe fruit, I love you. That when you take it into the body, it provides a massive challenge for the human body. And thus there's less time for the body to recoup and heal and do its normal daily healing and cleansing practices, which allow you to feel good. This, mind you, is what we call aging. And so if you want to stop the process of aging, giving your body more time to recoup itself and be younger and heal, the better. So what this looks like in modern day society, and it's a really good time for someone to have had a career like me for the past 10 plus years, is fasting. And when I say fasting, you probably think of intermittent fasting. This is very, very common. Are you guys hovering with your water? You're waiting till I drink because we're playing the drinking game? All right, I'll drink. I'll put the angst to rest. So fasting today around the modern kitchen table, all over the world, really, it's not just in the West anymore, refers to intermittent fasting, right? And this is something that, do any of you have experience with intermittent fasting? Let me know. Comment. I'm not looking so many of these comments on Institute for Aliveness on, what is this device? This is not YouTube. This one is Instagram. I see the YouTube comments, so comment there if you want to share some orange essential oil for you guys. Smell it? Smell it? But when we look at fasting in the modern world, what people are normally referring to is intermittent fasting. It's going periods of anywhere from 12, which I don't think is really an intermittent fast, but whatever, 12 to 16 hours, or sometimes even 18, or sometimes diehards even 20 hours throughout the day where you're not eating. And then what you do then is confine your eating time to a period of 6 or 8 or 10 hours. And what that does is it gives your body more time to rest rather than digest, because this whole 3 meals a day thing is not something that was ever scripted by our body. It is not natural. You don't see any animal in the wild saying, I'd like to sit down for breakfast right now, right? That's very anthropomorphized in that human focus, right? This is not natural to be eating 3 times a day. It's something that was a byproduct of the workday, the school day, and at large, the Industrial Revolution. That when you look at cultures that are still strong and diehard and stubborn a little bit, that haven't really been affected by the 1950s American Dietary Association's advice to eat 3 meals a day and have a nice old big breakfast, right? Countries like France or Israel, where people are really stubborn, you start to see that these populations of people, what do they have for breakfast? Maybe croissant, cafe, nothing, right? They have pretty much nothing. So that whole breakfast is the most important meal of the day is something that was created by the agricultural lobbying institutions in the United States and now has permeated into awareness of what you know is true about health. And this is a lot of the work that I did throughout my career, was really ask you just, how do you think you know? How do you know what you think you know about health? Where did you learn it? Right? Who was paying to make you think that? Right? In whose interest is it that you think that? Did it come from your body? And so this process of like joining the thought ethos of the Institute for Aliveness is all based on experimentation inside, not some scientific study that was often, paid for by a pharmaceutical company, but rather by you and your own experimentation. So that's what we're after here, very much so in these quarantine weeks, for you to start awakening to your own power and agency in understanding anything about health, because it comes from inside and it comes from your body. So start with the hydration, start with the pooping. In terms of food addiction, start with believing that you don't need food. And every time and I encourage you to do a 14 or 16 hour, like work up to a 16-hour intermittent fast where you finish eating at 7 p.m. and you don't eat again until 11 a.m. And it's really not that much, especially if you have like something to do in the morning, whether it's a workout routine or some meditation practice, or you want to get on the phone with a friend. And that's when you have 1.5 liters to 2 liters of water on an empty stomach in the morning, right? You wake up and you shower, you wash your outside. But guys, how about your inside, right? Drink, I drink, you drink. So with that showering of the inside in the morning, this is the most powerful thing we can do to really make our day start on the correct foot. And there are ways to hack your life so that you can figure out how not to have to pee all the time, right? Start drinking earlier, whatever it might be. And in this, you'll start to realize once you do the whole skipping breakfast thing, and I'm not talking about it in disclaimer for any kind of eating disorder. I'm talking about it in a way where you're having water for breakfast, or heck, have green juice for breakfast if you can make an actual juice. And then when it comes around to 11 a.m. or so, that's when you start to introduce solid fibrous matter to your system. And just giving your body that rest alone is going to not only boost your immunity hugely, but it's also going to slow the aging process. It's going to make you feel so much better during the day. And by condensing the eating hours or the digestive system being on hours, you're going to give your system a big break. And if you want to even one-up yourself even more, because I know we have some overachievers and perfectionists in the group who's like, attracts like, we can say that I would encourage you to finish eating by sunset. And so that's roughly about 6:30 p.m. In more tropical regions of the earth. And I know those of you up in northern Norway are like, what? That's like 2 p.m. So just experiment with it, of course, seasonally. But the earlier that you can stop eating for the day, the better. That eating the Spanish style or even the Italian style of having, 10 o'clock dinner or something like this is actually not only weakening the immune system, and it'll be very interesting when this is all over to do the work that I do of epidemiological research from the lens of non-communicable disease and what are called comorbidities right now. Everyone's crazy about that in the COVID era, in the time of COVID. And so, overlaying, people's eating habits and their lifestyle habits with, wellness or illness. If you would look at like the Holland numbers, they would be much lower because people in Holland are biking everywhere all the time. There's still a culture of something other than automobiles. And hopefully the dinner's a little bit earlier than you would find in other Mediterranean European countries. So really interesting to do those kinds of population-based studies. There's a lot more that goes into it. I mean, collective societal trauma, things like this definitely play into seeing which countries' immune systems will be weaker. It's not about the virus spreading, and this is the most important thing that I can say. And then I'll stop talking about COVID. I know. We're talking about poop and sex and food addiction. But it's not about the virus spreading, because the virus can come and it can go. But if you have a strong immune system, a strong soil, if you take care of yourself, it can't touch you. What it doesn't kill you is going to make you stronger. And so, like, rather than fearing this element that's bad or evil or scary, it's like, cool, I'm working on strengthening myself and changing my own thought patterns, my lifestyle principles, and how I interact with the world to be resilient. And that's what we're interested in the Institute for Aliveness, is that level of up-leveling humanity on all levels, not just physical, but emotional. Emotional intelligence is a huge part of it. And so when it comes to food addiction, are you eating your emotions, right? How many of you, raise your hand, comment in the threads, how many of you eat emotionally, right? If you don't comment, you're lying. And I love you, but that's one of our only very few ways that we have left to cope. And so fasting is a massive teaching, whether it's intermittent fasting or longer term fasting that we do with the initiation, to start to learn and understand all of these habits and patterns. I have them. God, guys, I'm one of the most experienced living fasting experts on earth in terms of the amount of people that I fasted and my 1 or 2 month fasts myself. And I still have those food addiction issues. The thing about humanity isn't that they go away because we are not hunter-gatherers anymore. And even hunter-gatherers had uncertainty and fear, right? And we're also not growing our own food. Casey says she nervous eats celery. You're hilarious, Casey. Thanks for commenting on everything. Anyone here can comment too. So we are so disconnected that it's a massive source of unsurety. And so facing that is the number one way to get over food addiction, realizing that other people, right, nervous eat or emotionally eat, realizing that we actually have power over it, because what we can do, again, is enhance this awareness to a level where we can self-reflect. And when you see yourself reaching for the fridge and you know that you're emotionally constipated, you can have ways to poop out your emotions rather than shove them down and eat them. All right. And the ways to do that, the strongest that I've ever found is through the pen. Setting a timer on your phone for 8 minutes, putting pen to paper and starting to write everything that's inside of you and not letting the pen stop, right? Just letting it write. After you're finished, tear it up, throw it away. But just get whatever wants to come through you out rather than holding it in. And that alone, if you can start to make a practice of that, my loves, you've just one-upped your entire life for 20, 30, 60 years into the future. And so that's a massive other experiment that I'd like you to be making for this quarantine time, is writing whenever you feel the food cravings come on, whenever you feel nervous, right? Calling one of your friends, actually just asking the question, what's really going on for me right now? Maybe I'm bored and I just want to sit and have something to do and chew on something, right? Bored eating is real. That's part of food addiction as well. And so if you are bored eating, what I would recommend is, and this is a movement that I've been trying to make for years with my Eat Greens in Public campaign, is to actually have a bag of, let's say, baby spinach or baby kale, baby sweet, leafy, tender greens, and eat them like potato chips, right? So that can give you the same reflex, right, without giving you the same unfortunate outcome. And so check all of this stuff out. Celine says she loves the writing before emotional eating. Yeah, try it out. And again, this is all don't just listen and then not go and ever apply this stuff. Take your phone or your device that you're watching on right now to go find a pen and paper in your house. I'm watching you. Right, do it. And then come back and sit down so you have it and it's always there and you're setting yourself up for success, right? Because this experimentation, if you can track, and this is where the data collection comes in for all of my scientists out there. If you can track every time you were triggered in some way, maybe it was the news, right? Maybe it was a conversation or missing your friend or missing a lover or missing your body being touched. And this is what we'll get into as we talk about sex in the third part of this lecture. And my 96-year-old grandfather might be signing on at some point. So we'll see how that goes. But with that, when you when you come to a place where you can embrace your emotional eating rather than deny it, and most people in the world of taboo that we're swimming through and tickling and swiping away in this experimentation process and this re-embodiment process, what we're doing here is finding out all of the data points of when we got triggered emotionally and we wanted to reach for food, right? That addiction of food. And let me just take a step back and tell you on a level of neurochemistry why food has this power over you. It's not only that insecurity, right? It's more than that. It's also that, guess what, guys? We're, again, in eating food that's not found in the natural world, eating a tremendously condensed amount of calories at once. This is the work of my teacher, Doug Lyle. We're having 1,000 calories in a slice of pizza. I know, and how many of you went, pizza? Just like my brother went, celery on the YouTube comments when Casey was talking about celery, right? How many of you have that comfort food, comfort eating kind of addiction? Yeah, probably a lot of you. Well, what's under that, the underpinning of that on a neurotransmitter level, is that when you eat a concentrated amount of fat, because that's principally what it is, whether it's the cheese or whether it's the dairy, right? If I could have a nickel for every time someone walked into my office and say, Andrea, I'll do anything that you say, I just won't give up cheese, right? That love affair with cheese, what is that all about? Well, guys, what that's about is the fact that that concentrated calorie load is a straight dopamine shot to your brain. It's the same thing that happens when you snort cocaine. And so your body becomes addicted to getting many calories at once. And the reason for this is that back in our reptilian brain, we still have a lack of understanding that we are in trouble if we don't get calories now. But when we do get calories now, hallelujah, all celebrations on deck, because we're going to survive for the next 2 weeks, the next quarantine period, whatever it is. And so the release of celebration in the brain with the dopamine shot of like, hey, high five, self, good job. You know, that is a neurochemical disaster for addiction, whether it is cocaine or whether it is pizza or cheese, right? Or anything fried with all of that concentration of oil. 1 tablespoon of oil is at least 100 calories in fat with no fiber to put it through. And oil is the most commonly eaten non-whole food that's seen as a health food, even though it cannot be and never will be. So let's see, any comments coming through? Welcome to all of you beautiful people. Please write things. Let's interact. Howard says that hydrating was key for him. Yeah, these are the keys. Like, I don't waste my time. I'm not interested in sitting here and talking to you. I'm interested in you going out and doing the experiments. Please write to me 2 weeks from now and share the data. If it's not the data that's been so clear to the Institute for Aliveness in 15 years of doing this kind of stuff all over the world, then like, let's challenge it. I'm all about experimentation. This is science, and you are a living scientist in your own laboratory. So can you awaken it? All right. So anyone have any questions about poop or food addiction? Daniela, who is part of our TIFA course and is streaming in from Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, says, dance for natural dopamine. I love that. Yes, dance for a natural dopamine release. Give yourself to-do lists that you can check off and have fun with. And yeah, find out how you can set yourself up for success. So guys, I'm going to bring back my friend for this third part about sex. All right, so grab your water. You still there? Are you ready to meet my friend? Her name's Kitty. Kitty's here to talk to you about sex. Hi, everyone. My name is Kitty. I'm inspired by Moira Rose, if anyone knows who that is. So our third part of our conversation together today is going to be about sex. It's going to be about the fact that when you're quarantined, you have absolutely no option to sleep with anyone other than whomever's in your house or whomever's not in your house. Unfortunately, I know it's painstaking. And yet this sexual energy is such a huge part of who you are, because guess what? You're human. And there is a actual biological imperative that your sexual awakening happens perhaps daily, perhaps monthly, whenever it might be for women based upon your cycle, or for men, perhaps there is also a monthly element to it where you feel like, turned on at certain parts of the moon cycle, perhaps. So an experiment would be for you to start noticing when it is that you're turned on, right? When are you more interested in another? And there's definitely an astrological part of this as well, because when you're having certain transits, let's say to your own Venus or Mars, it will show in you being a little more turned on. And so what is the solution here, right? I look on Pornhub and I see that the ratings there, my friends at Pornhub, they sent me an email saying they're off the charts, right? With this whole COVID quarantine thing, it seems that everyone's watching porn. Is porn the answer? Why, no, my friends, of course it's not. The answer is being present with yourself, being present with these feelings, not dissimilar to what Andrea told you about emotional eating, that when you notice things coming up, where are they coming from? Is it coming from a place of lust? Is it coming from a place of wanting to be heard and felt, of feeling lonely, right? Is sex your only outlet for intimacy? Or do you allow for intimacy in other parts of your life when you deeply connect to a human being and you feel seen and heard, right? What parts of your existence allow you to be touched beyond just the physical? And can you find quarantine as a gift to be able to explore those more than just going out and having one night stands? And those of you in relationship, can you be actually super grateful that you have someone during this time and allow that gratitude to wash over your relationship, right? So more homework. If you're in a relationship, if you're with someone in a house quarantined up, thank them for being your quarantine buddy. And for everyone, deepen your communication with the people with whom you are spending time, whether it's virtual time, right, or physical time. Tell them how you want to be touched. And that could be, I want to be touched in this video conference call by you hearing some of my childhood trauma around sex, right? Sexual abuse is one of the most unspoken taboos, right? The amount of women, and this would be other homework, and I know it came out a little bit with the Me Too era about 3 years ago, but the amount of women who had childhood sexual abuse that goes undiscussed is disgusting, right? Because that's who we are as humanity. We haven't taken this part of our humanity, which again is biological, to a place of peace and calm. Just like the food addiction, we're emotionally eating, we're emotionally sexing, right? We are binge sexing in the modern world because people were never taught how to communicate about touch, about sexuality, about self-reflection of the body and relating. And so this is dire medicine in the world of today, to just bring this same quality of awareness that we've brought to poop and food to sex. And so the application of this and the experimentation that I'm inviting you into is definitely, first and foremost, recalling your own sexual past, you know? Writing a sex memoir, if you will. I think a really good outlet for this, and for those of you who are bored at home and want something to do during the quarantine time, there's a wonderful Netflix series called Sex Education. Shout out if any of you have watched it. It's like one of my favorite things on earth right now. I'm just like, I'm not eating the food. I'm tapering. I'm rationing out the quarantine snacks. I'm rationing out Sex Education. They just came out with the second season. That shows you that it's good, right? And it is a show that goes back to puberty. It goes back to the time of sexual awakening. And hopefully, my hope for the world is that it will reveal this opportunity for reflection on your own sexual experience and your own ability to say, wow, I personally was heavily affected by Cruel Intentions. I'm dating myself, right? In middle school. That imprinted my sexual reality far more than I knew until I watched it again as an adult. And I was like, oh, fuck. That's not healthy, right? And so what affected your sexual upcoming and coming out, perhaps, for some of you? Or just coming out of your shell, or your own sexual coming of age was the phrase she was looking for. Right? What affected that? Yeah, what was it like for you? What do you remember about that time? In which ways were you respectful? In which ways were you disrespectful, either to yourself or to another individual? Right? What do you regret most? What do you celebrate most? What do you want more of? How does that indicate your fantasies today? Right? And there is no shame here. In the world of sex, there can't be shame. Thank God, Burning Man, if you didn't teach me anything else, you definitely taught me that. And when we come to that place in taboo, where there's no more judgment, right? There's a field beyond right and wrongdoing. I'll meet you there. Rumi will be there too. Yeah. And we'll hang out there in this space where it's not about embarrassing or bad or ugly or shameful. Rather, it's about like, okay, things are okay. And so what I'm inviting you to do, just like I'm inviting you to write, to process when that emotional eating urge comes up, or that boredom eating, or that quarantine nervous anxiety eating comes up, what I'm inviting you to do in sex is when the lust comes up, the desire for another, I'm inviting you to actually be with yourself. And if for you that means touching yourself, can you touch yourself in a way where you're touching yourself rather than imagining being touched by another or watching someone on screen being touched? Can you be with yourself sexually first before being with anyone else? And how can you also excavate what's really going on? If you are lusting, what are you actually lusting for? Are you lusting for human connection? Are you lusting just to get off, right? And what does getting off mean? So in this part of the lecture, Kitty, my friend, has questions for you more than answers, because these are questions that only you can answer. And the experiment is doing this work and asking these questions and answering really honestly, really, really raw. And so I'll make this video available for any of you who want to rewind to this question part and write down the questions one by one. Or I know many of you already have your journal and your pen with you. You can just write them down as I'm saying them. And do some writing on this later. And if writing doesn't feel authentic, like, fine, cool. Call up your best friend and be like, hey, can we talk? There's some stuff I want to talk about, to just explore. Because guys, if you spend the entire quarantine escaping through TV shows or emotional eating or being miserable or incessantly working or worrying, you have missed a giant opportunity to get to know yourself better. And last time I checked, there's one person worth getting to know in this world. And it's you. It's you. Right? It's you. And so how can you allow this time to be marked much more by aloneness than loneliness? Osho talked about this. How can we mark this time with being fully present with and full of, in the best way, yourself? Full with your own presence rather than loneliness, which is lacking the presence of someone else. So aloneness is actually a really good thing. So for those of you who are alone during this time, be in it fully, truly, wholly, and find that level of exploration, because that's your entry point to experimentation. I'll drink to that. It's not vodka if you just signed on. Kitty only drinks water. All right, so we have someone here, All Over Wellness says, can you be with yourself sexually first? I love that. It's so powerful. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Took me a long time to realize that one, guys. Because if you're even in sexual interactions with other people, sorry, my fringe is all over the place today. If you're not with yourself in sexual interactions, then you will constantly be trying to please and people please and reach outside of you. And then you don't actually enjoy the experience because you're not having it, right? You're in another world. Or if you're in fantasy while you're making love to someone, and this is for those of you in relationships that should have ended about a half a year ago. Yeah, you know who I'm You know who I'm talking about, right? That's you, isn't it? It's you. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Right. So in those relationships, right, you often check out in sex. And so where do you check out to? What's that telling you about yourself? How can we be so bluntly honest now that we've tickled taboo, removed that fear over this entire topic, that we can just talk about it head on? All right. So we are out of time for today, my beloveds. If you want more of Kitty, or if you want more of all of these experimentations and these thoughts, I encourage you to go to instituteforaliveness.com, theinitiation.co. We actually have a fasting program that's already in prep week. We start fasting on the 3rd of April, which is this coming Friday. So it's also an epic time to fast. I would love to have you join us. If you're in a financial struggle at this point in time, write me a message and we will have a conversation about that. Again, we are a nonprofit, so we're incredibly generous at the initiation. And yeah, so much more to talk about. We could spend all week together if you want. Don't forget the Facebook page, Institute for Aliveness on Facebook. And I am planning on doing more live broadcasts during this quarantine time. So please write me if you have any recommendations or requests. If you were thinking about up-leveling your own life and enrolling in an 18-month program, TIFA does re-enroll January 2021. We can talk about that. Whomever you are, wherever you are, I want you to know that I love you. You are loved. You are deeply, deeply loved. And this time is a time for deep reflection, not on an esoteric sense, but like on a check out your poo, right? See where that lust is coming from. See if you can break a little bit off the food addiction pyramid. And come back to yourself, because that's the only good place to be. Unless you can be Kitty. Then be Kitty. Love you, people.